to order.
This is 24.
Um,
You want to the next
Welcome everybody this afternoon. I hope everybody's family is safe and doing well.
25.
At this time, we want to, I'm assuming everybody had a chance to look at the minutes. Um, If you have or have not, please let us know. But I would like to, if everything is in order with you, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as written and submitted.
Second.
Okay. All right. It was,
Mullen Larry.
but motion has been approved by Brother Weaver and second by,
Street.
David Bill. Yes, I couldn't think of your last name for a second. All those in favor, would you please vote by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Minutes have been approved as submitted. Thank you. Lisa, thank you for a great job of putting the minutes together as well, too. Then we'll move into the updates for the staff. And Mr. Hughes, take over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight we are going to talk about SSYP, secondary 6-year plan is coming up for approval. Very quickly with the board, and Rick Spurlock is here with VDOT to kind of walk us through the plan as it stands right now. And then I'd like to have a discussion about the possibility of adding a project to this SSYP with some leftover funds. We have $107,000, I think it was, Rick, left over.
Hair over 108.
Yeah, left over so that we can add a project. I think there are two good candidate projects on our ranking list that we could put on this plan, get it funded, and knock one more project off of our list. So at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Rick.
All right, like Leon said, this, I don't know if everybody can see it, but this is the list as it stands right now. It's still showing Farmer Drive on the plan, and that's just because we haven't closed the books on it. Until we financially close that, it'll need to stay on there. This time next year, it'll be dropped off. But it is fully funded. There was a deficit. We went out there and had to remove a bunch of trees and in the intersection. And when we did, we found a telephone pedestal that had to be moved out of there. So that cost a little bit. And then there was a drop inlet that needed to be lifted because it was that far below the grade. So took a little extra work. So that's one of the things we do in the district at VDOT and at the residency is look at ways to cover that. So the very last priority is almost like a checkbook. It keeps all the out year money and any money that is left over on a project, it goes back to that. So we took some of that previous money out to cover what needed to be finished on Farmer Drive. Second priority is Rattle Trap. That's fully funded in 25, fiscal year 25. I met with the contractor out there actually this morning to go over that project, and he's looking to start next week. He thinks it'll take about 4 weeks to do his part of that. So this time next year, that one will also drop off the list, which will leave Caroline Street, current priority 3. That is rural addition. It has $90,000 on it, but Caroline Street is already hard surfaced as it is. So I don't know if it's going to take that much to bring it up into the system or not. I'll talk to Kyle and see how much he wants to do, but there might be a little money left on that. So all this money you see on the very last priority, this is like the budget account. So all these out year money you have, like $91,676 a year per year, but some of that is unpaved road money, and that has to be used on current unpaved roads like Rattle Trap and things like that. This Telefee, $81,000 a year, that's money that can be put on pretty much any secondary project. So, like Leon was saying, you have a little money left now. This year, or currently, you have $9,200, a little over $17,000 next year, and then you start to $91,000 per year. So you would have for fiscal year 26, which is actually next July 25, you would have If it's not an unpaved road, you would have the 81 plus the 17,580 plus the 15. It's like $180,000 roughly, so that would do a small project, but that would put a project on the books. I know Mr. Thomas was looking at a turn lane on double three jump coming by the high school, onto 207. I met with a contractor on that, and we think we could do that for that amount of money, so. He gave me an estimate for a turn lane that comes to the first entrance, which is about 250 feet long. And then we did a grand one that is 500 feet long all the way to the second entrance of the school. So it just depends on what you want to do. I think you could get the long one to 500 feet done for that amount of money. And if it comes in a little bit higher than that next year, we do the same thing. We just make an adjustment during next year's plan, if you want to, or whatever. So you can also add, it doesn't have to be current projects that you add to the plan. You can add projects all the way out to 2030, as long as you can show them being funded. So, if you wanted to program some of the out year money with additional projects, that's certainly something you can do. So I guess that's one of the things we need to talk about at this time before we take it to the board and the public hearing for the SSYP.
So, given if you see our listing that we have here, that turn lane project is on there, and given the small cost to doing that, my thought is that's a good project to go ahead and put on this plan to get done next year, and it comes off of our listing, and then this plan will get approved, and we have a project out into the future, and then as we go through and finish our ranking methodology next year, then we can start to program out into the future, and then set up our 6-year plan based on our ranking priorities and kind of move forward that way. So, in the transportation improvement world, $107,000 is not a lot of money. And if you look at those other projects on there, they're going to be a lot more than that. And so I think our timing is good to get a project knocked off the list, and then also for us to, start the prioritization of this list and move forward. At our last meeting, you all talked about adjusting one of the measures in the methodology from, I think, accidents to lane miles. And David and I have a meeting set up Friday to talk about putting that methodology together and getting it added to the ranking system so that you all can rank that. And then we'd be prepared at that point to do the rankings and then set up our 6-year plan for next year with those new projects. And so it works out, I guess, when you live right. But this does kind of work out for us in terms of the timing. So we get to take one of these projects off our list, put it in the 6-year plan for this year, and then we're set up to do our ranking and prepare the 6-year plan going forward.
So the first one, Leon, would be at the school.
Yes.
That would be the first thing that we would consider at the top priority.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's the top priority, but it's a project that we can get done for the money that we have. We can fully fund that project right now, and move that off the list and get it done.
So now, how do we do that, Leon? How do we decide to give that to the board and say this is our recommendation?
I think, with you all just kind of by consensus saying we want to do that, Rick and Kyle will add this to the 6-year plan, and it will get presented to the board, and that's what we'll move forward. And it'll come with, when Kyle presents to the board, it'll come with the committee's recommendation of having that project there.
Well, I think that would be one of the priorities, especially at the school. I think that's a very important thing. And I would say that, I don't know how we exactly do this, but I would say that would be a number one priority that we should consider at this time.
Does staff have a recommendation as to whether going to the first entrance or second entrance would be best use?
My recommendation is get all we can get.
Right.
So whatever the money will buy us. It will
Okay.
buy us
If we could vote.
I mean, I don't know.
I think it'll get you the money we have currently will get you to the second entrance. So,
That would be really good.
Yeah.
Just so I can
If
get
you're gonna do it, might as well.
and get up to speed, number 11, is that the project we're talking about, turning lane at Hospital?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's gonna be a right turn lane on Devil's Street, John? On
207.
207?
Yes.
And then when you say the first entrance and the second entrance, is that the parking area next to the high school or the bus area, the next one down?
I would have to see an area.
That's right, high school. yeah.
Yes, to the parking area.
So we're talking about either
Yeah.
going here or going
There,
there?
yeah.
Okay, so almost to the water tower. And you're saying going to the second one, you think you could do for 108 or whatever?
Do it with hired equipment.
Do you know what it would be just to go to the first one?
It was something like, I mean, it's not half on
Right.
what you would think, but it was something like 65, 70 maybe.
Using that extra money somewhere else.
Well, I mean, there's what, 400, well, I don't know, this isn't current because y'all updated it, so a little over $400,000 in the fund, I guess, right?
Total.
Yeah, in the out years. I mean, not including unpaid road funds.
Yeah, it's 90, around 90, or 80,000 a year, so.
It was,
The school had talked about, I don't know if it's still a priority at all, a shared use path to connect the middle school and the high school together. And the thought at the time was it would go up there in that utility strip. And I don't know, I guess that would tie in at the south of that entrance, or maybe the turn lane. I was just thinking if we were using all the right of way for turn lane, we may be doing that at the cost of future shared use path if that were to go faster, but I think you could do it. I think you could do them both. I'm just trying to think out loud.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, if you could squeeze both in there.
Yeah, well, I think that if you stop at the second entrance, you could tie a shared use path in
Yeah.
to the east of the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
So where one stopped, the other one kind of started. Yeah, I think.
Would that be funded through SSYP as well, or is that another?
Well, I guess it's an option. I think at the time they were. Yeah, it was either TAP or. I don't remember. It's been a while since we talked about it.
would it be
It might have been
difficult
safe
to,
across the school too.
would it be difficult to add it with the, could we get TAP funds to add it to the SSYP funds to make that happen?
So the TAP funds require what, 20%? 20% match.
Match, yeah.
Can you use telephone for match? Or TAP? I know you can't for revenue sharing. Because it's federal. We could check on it.
I mean, what's the realistic time frame for them wanting to do this? If it's TAP,
I don't know, it's still,
3 years.
yeah, yeah, there's,
I would take what you got.
if you start that now, you're at least 5 years out.
Yeah.
Heck, the county might decide to build it. Just do it, let's do it.
The TAP application, if the turn lane was there and you had something to tie to.
Well, you're really tying across the street.
Right.
How much more is that approximately, you got any idea?
Depends on what crossing you're talking about.
Yeah.
You probably want a flashing beacon.
Yeah.
Probably want to
Probably want 150,000 just for that. Hooking that up.
Yeah, this would be more than the turn lane.
More than you done, yeah.
But the turn lane, I think, would solve an existing problem to back up there. I think it would help the police at the intersection during traffic every.
I mean, my thought would be, once you're in there doing something, might as well get it all done at the same
Yeah,
time.
it's only $35,000 difference between.
Would that be something you think the board would consider stepping up to the plate to handle?
What's that?
The extra funding
For the,
for the walkway?
potentially, but I would say, like Kyle was saying, I want to go ahead and get this project on there now,
Mm-hmm.
and then go back and approach them later. Because there may be other options for getting that shared use path built. So,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we would need to flush that out a little bit and come up with the estimate.
Okay.
I mean, there are other programs like TAP or Safe Routes to School
Right.
that it could be eligible for where we're just asking for a match instead of all of it. Yeah, so.
Mr. Chair, I think we
Entertain a motion.
kind of all agree that this should be a priority as far as we're concerned. For the children's safety, I think this is something we should move as far up the ladder as we can. Legitimately.
And on the trail, like you said, there are pockets of money out there for trails, accessing schools, what have you. Right?
Yeah, there are other programs.
Okay. Was that a motion, George?
Yes, that was a motion that we moved that to the top priority.
Second it?
Okay.
It was, properly moved and seconded by Mr. Weaver and seconded by Mr. Long, that we would move the Caroline County, the turn lane up to a priority and put it before the board of supervisors.
Thank you.
With all those, in favor, motion by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. All right, Mr. Hughes, anything else on your, for your updates?
Yes.
Before we leave that,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
should we consider adding anything for, the unpaved roads? I mean, after this year, we don't have anything on there. You have $55,000 in the out years total that can only be used for unpaved roads. So you're gonna have to, at some point, use some of the seller fees to do your next unpaved road. I don't know if we have a list of unpaved roads or.
I was gonna say, if you wanted to add another like Jericho or something like that, it doesn't have, it can even be out to 2028 as long as you can show it's funded, and then we can pull it in if we can or anything like that.
I mean, what we've said before is like, it's most important that we have the immediate money programmed, and you have some projects in the pipeline in the next couple of years. But you can add things at any time, really. Even if you want to do it out of cycle, you can add something to the 6-year plan. So, as long as you don't have just money sitting, that to me has always been our biggest priority, is to make sure that the previous money is utilized, and the next 2 or 3 fiscal years you have something programmed. Those funds in the outer years, and we can always add projects. I mean, to David's point, like, we can get a list of the existing unpaved roads, which there are really not a ton of them. In
I don't know what they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small list at this point because we've done so many rural rustics, but we can give that list to you all. I don't know if I'll be able to pull it up tonight, but something that we might want to have in our back pocket if you want to add something later down the line. I would recommend taking those at a certain point and prioritizing those just in and of themselves here. I mean, we have a decent per mile cost of what it takes to do a rural rustic project, and that can kind of help, you know, prioritize and estimate some of these things.
Yeah, sounds good.
But if you don't do it, if you use that strategy and you do that for years and years, then you're gonna get to a point where you've got money sitting that's not doing anything. So to David's point, you want to have projects programmed.
Right. And that's what we were talking about, coming back and doing our ranking methodology and programming those in, and moving forward for next year's plan, that we'll see, several new projects jump into SSYP.
Yeah. Is there one particularly that you're thinking of?
No, I don't know. I was thinking of many levels. But I think it's just good. It's a good exercise for this group just to understand that unpaved road funds can only be spent on the rural rustics, unpaved roads, converting existing state maintained gravel roads to hard surface. So that's one type of project that we could consider, that we could use these funds for. We'll probably have to supplement that with tele fees, just because we're only getting, what was it, 10,000 or something a year.
Quite that.
And as we pave those out, will get less every year because the allocation is based on the amount of gravel roads that you have. So that pot of money will dwindle further down every year. And to finish it out, we'll have to use more of the telefees. And the telefees are what we just allocated to build that turn lane. So that comes out of that, $400,000 number that he had through FY 20.
There was some legislation that was just passed too for the unpaved road fees, that allow you to, well, I don't know if it officially passed, I think it was on the governor's desk.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we signed it.
But it was to allow unpaved road funds not just to be to hard surface and unpaved road. You can maintain an unpaved road with unpaved road funds. So where that came from is up in Loudon. There's a bunch of people that like their unpaved roads and they want to keep the unpaved road. They don't want to gravel. So we are now able to utilize those funds to maintain existing unpaved roads. So it's an option. Here's this.
Okay, all right. So the other thing I wanted to update you all on is April 1st was the deadline for the Smart Scale pre-application process. And we were able to add, as you guys remember, I told you all about the Route 1 corridor study that VDOT is doing. And so out of that study, there were several projects that we were able to add as a part of the pre-application submission. And so we ended up with 4 because one of the projects, and I'll show you in a minute, it was 3 separate projects. We combined it and made it one project. So we ended up with 4 applications going in. And so I don't think we're in a particular order, but here we'll start with this was Page Road and Marie Road. Can you pull it up just a little bit? Hit the plus sign. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So as you can see, some intersection improvements there on Route 1 at Page and Marie. Helped improve line of sight along Route 1 because there's a site issue there. There've been some significant accidents at that intersection, and so this was one of the projects that submitted for as a part of the pre-application process.
That's right at the top of the crest there. If you've driven up that way, and if you want to make a left turn onto either one, doesn't matter which direction you're going, stop at the top of that hill, and someone rolls up behind you. There's a lot of rear end crashes there, waiting to make that left.
So then the next one. So this is at 207 Rogers Clark and Route 1, and this was a project for pedestrian crossings and sidewalks along Rogers Clark Boulevard from the intersection going towards the interstate. So this project got submitted. There may be an opportunity for another funding source for this project if it somehow doesn't get funded. I had a conversation with Cassie and we talked about maybe this might be a safety improvement project, maybe an ASIP project. But we included.
Where does the sidewalk go?
So it provides pedestrian accommodations all the way up to the interstate, essentially, along 207.
So the red lines of the sidewalk?
Yes. Yes.
What's the green?
That's a turn lane. So it adds a right northbound turn lane, and then the pedestrian accommodations.
That's a good project. You got the commuter lot there and
Yeah.
you get pedestrian improvements to all these hotels and truck stops.
There are a lot of people that walk.
A lot of people.
Significant pedestrian traffic there.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Would you have any cross lanes over 207? Roger. Going from one side to the other?
Pedestrian crossing.
Yes.
At some point, we're gonna have to consider that, but the idea is that the pedestrian will come to the intersection and cross.
Now, what pedestrian gonna walk from?
You can't legislate people's thought process. We can't.
Well,
They
so
come from the
you would
Waffle
have
House
the-
at 2 o'clock in the morning, they gonna walk down to Route 1.
I mean, so 1 o'clock crossings aren't off the table, but you know, you have a protected phase. I mean, to your point, if they're not gonna do it, it's something we could explore, but we would really like to, you know, funnel those pedestrians to the safest place that it is to cross. I will tell you that I can name like 5 pedestrian crossings right now where I've had a fatality about 20 feet away from a protected crossing that they didn't use. We had one at Route 1 and Market Street 2 nights ago, and the pedestrian was wearing all black and didn't use the crosswalk. That was a lighted push button protected fix, and that woman is now dead.
There's a laundromat there too.
Yeah.
People go from the
Yeah.
hotel to, it's one of the few places, there's a place you can wash your clothes and, the Wayne
There's a-
laundromat.
There's a signal right off the page there too. There's another opportunity to have a crossing there with that signal.
At the Fly J.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The Exxon on the other side. It's still next.
So so the next one is, these are the turn lanes on Route 1 at Lake Caroline. So it adds a left turn lane for the northbound traffic at Lake Caroline. That was a project that was identified as part of the study that was needed. So that's in the pre-app process. And then this is a combination of, it ended up being 3 projects in the study. And so in conversation with Cassie, we decided, well, let's make this one project because all of these intersections are in relatively close proximity to each other. So let's see if I can figure where we are here. So there's Tractor Supply. So the first improvement is at, it is gonna add a left turn lane there for, at the
Direct road, yes.
yeah, and then for
Yeah,
Target.
that's there.
And then if you come down, you'd be going north again. This second
here?
image, yeah. So you
Trailer
have
park.
you have turn lane improvements there at Deerfield, and then continuing north, you have turn lane improvements at Pine Tree. So like I said, in the study, it identified these as 3 separate projects, but for a smart scale application, because they were in close proximity, we made it one project. So it became one application versus 3.
Was there any I know I missed it, but was there any talk about increasing the sidewalk capacity in that entire area? Because there's a lot of people walking now up there too.
Yes. So one of the things that we're working on, the smart scale changed a little bit, so you don't get as many points now for pedestrian improvements, but the GWRC has put together a pedestrian plan for the Ladysmith area, and as a part of that plan, it does have pedestrian accommodations on Route 1 as well as on 639 on the west side of the Route 1 intersection. So there's the improvements at 639 added the shared use paths on both sides, and then so going west from Route 1, that plan adds pedestrian accommodations on 639 going west.
Does that go all the way up to the school, Leon?
It will go all the way to the school. Working right now with the developer of Ladysmith Village to try to get them to finish up the streets and also their pedestrian accommodation that they were committed to doing.
Right.
So that's been a challenge, but we're working with them to get that done. And then the other part is,
Durrett there, it doesn't affect that road that Clay and I talked about, that whole road on Durrett behind the school where there's a mess there with the traffic, it doesn't affect that across that Durrett road behind the school.
no, right, no. This would all be out on 639 and on Route 1. The other thing that's happening on Route 1 is, I think I have mentioned this to you all, if I haven't, the East Coast Greenway Trail is coming out of Spotsylvania. At one point, it was designed that it was going to go out 606 and kind of traverse through the county and, kind of awkward, unusable, unnecessary route, expensive route was going to impact a lot of agricultural properties. You put a 10-foot shared use path across someone's active agricultural field and taking that land out of crop production is a pretty expensive endeavor. So
These are all Bird Act roads, so VDOT have to buy the right of way.
yeah, exactly. So Spotsylvania decided in conversation with Caroline, this happened before I got here. So we had conversations when I was in Spotsylvania with Caroline about bringing that path along Route 1 because Kalahari was coming. And so it made a lot more sense to have the shared use path to provide pedestrian accommodations to Kalahari. And then from Kalahari, it would continue south down to the Caroline line. And so it made sense for Caroline to pick it up there and then continue it south along Route 1. So now, pedestrian paths are kind of wish list items, and if we can get funding for them, if there's a project along the road that would help include that in there, we include that as a part of those projects. So there are a couple options for pedestrian accommodations because we know that there are people walking up here, but it's not,
I really wish they could get that direct road cut through from in Ladysmith. And I know that direct road is just a problem from in Ladysmith Village and that, because I know it's an issue because we can't even put like a yellow line going down that middle of the road. People
So you're saying direct within the village?
within the
going
village,
towards
yeah,
there.
that's the plan I've talked about because initially was talked about there was going to be sidewalks along that road in the initial, I think, development plans for the whole area 20 years ago, but there's nothing. Kids are walking, they're trying to walk the dogs, and it's just it's a cut through road.
Yeah.
People go from one to here.
But we are working, we've been in conversations in the recent past with the developers and owners of the project, so trying to get them to honor the commitments that they made many years ago. So that's an ongoing story. So stay tuned. So those were the items that I had for update. I just want to let everybody know. And then this FYI, Kyle help me with and David can help me with the schedule here for Smart Scale. So April 1 was the deadline for pre-applications. The next step is
So the full application is gonna be due.
August?
It's in the minutes. We can talk
We
about it
can
last
say
time.
it pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
It's all out there.
So, Leon, these four, if they were your pre-apps,
Yes.
I have
and
August
so
first.
final application, only get what, 3? Or you?
You get 4.
You're getting.
You get 5 pre-apps and you get 4 final.
Okay, so you're moving forward with all 4 of them?
And with the possibility that the pedestrian, an opportunity for some other funding, except the pedestrian at 207 and Rogers Clark.
So is VDOT helping you with those applications, all the estimates and stuff, or do we have a consultant?
Well, since this is being done as part of the corridor study, the consultant has prepared the estimates and done all of the work, prepared the sketches and everything, so.
August 1 is when the round 6 full applications are due.
So, but VDOT was very helpful with, helping me get them submitted, so.
So at the latest move at the Red Road, was there a proffer there for widening after so many units?
I thought it was supposed to be rerouted.
Yeah, I don't know, I have to look at it, yeah.
And then is it Star Drive, that's where the Tractor Supply is?
Yes,
Are there any more improved developments there, or is it just Tractor Supply?
it's just Tractor Supply right now.
Are there some more pad sites?
There are some available parcels, I think, to the south. I think you see that parcel to the south there. And one of those parcels, it might be it's a little bit further south. So to say, you can see the very tip of it if you come south, along Route 1, no. There's a concept out there that at some point, this cul-de-sac right here is cul-de-sac or part of the industrial park. And there's a concept that could potentially take that road out to Route 1. But one of the issues that the corridor studies identified are the conflict points at the intersection. And there's some conversation about a potential median along Route 1 in that area, or trying to figure out a way to make that turn movement a little bit safer there at the Food Line Shopping Center. And one of the concepts they discussed was the possibility of extending a median. I don't know how far north that may go, but that would certainly impact the ability to make a left turn out of there if that was go through.
Is that Evans piece there?
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know names, proper
Yes.
names.
Yeah, Evans piece.
Now, Leon, isn't the red line a new sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got the
Yeah, it
sidewalk
says
all
tied to
along.
existing sidewalk there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was, man, I thought I might have been part of some discussion that talked about concept of Star Drive coming all the way around to connect with where the Wawa.
New green,
Yeah, is that what it's called?
yeah, I think that is in your,
Yeah, I thought
complex.
the sidewalk
Yeah,
was,
there.
Just the concept.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
But I can tell you, there's an issue
Yeah,
with
one
the Green Road extension,
Mhm.
very close to
In
the
your plan.
sheets, because
No, there you
all
go.
the necessary land was not acquired, and there's a
Yeah, I remember
pretty
that very
significant
well.
pinch point
Sorry to say.
just past the sheets, and it may not, and it was concept, the concept shows a 4-lane road.
Yeah.
And it's probably gonna require the acquisition of some additional property to get that 4 lanes in there.
Okay.
So we just recently had a pre-application meeting with a project for some property to the north of the sheets. And that was one of the issues, is that it was a pretty significant traffic generator. And they were looking at having to build that 4-lane section of road. And they might not be able to do it because there's a stormwater management pond just adjacent to that pinch point. So someone's gonna have to acquire some additional land, I think, to get all 4 lanes in there. So that poses a little bit of challenge for someone. So. But it's only money. Okay.
Has there been any discussion if the county was gonna put any money on any of these smart scale applications, or are they asking for a full fund?
No, we're asking for full funding. And hopefully, since they're part of the study, hopefully that will help us in that process. So,
Get your screen in.
yeah, that's step one. So, but those were the updates. I just wanted to provide you all that to let you know that those have been submitted and they're in the hopper, so to speak. So, I didn't get any red check marks on my dashboard. So,
Great.
So when do they make a decision? You submit on August 1st, but when do they make a decision?
June 2025.
Yeah, we find out and they allocate the funding in the August, so it'll probably be, June, but like February, March timeframe, roughly.
Yeah, you'll get some staff recommended funds this year. It's not final till CTV moves.
That's usually in May, June.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad.
well, just remember with smart scale money, they get awarded, but the money is not available for 7 years out.
It's not a short, it's a
Yeah.
planned thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's money that's allocated over 6 years.
Yeah, it's a 6-year, everything's just a secondary 6-year plan, and it's a 6-year improvement plan. So like Route 1's a primary road, so it's part of the 6-year improvement plan. If there's a project funded, every year we approve funding for it, it's in the out years. So it's like years 5 and 6 is when funding is getting programmed. And
But now,
Smart Scale alternates with revenue sharing. So revenue sharing is the other big state program, but that requires a 50% match. So on smaller localities, a lot of times you don't apply for anything because you don't have a match. So smart scale, they get something for nothing.
The way you keep it, the even years is smart scale applications, that's when they're due. The odd years is when the revenue sharing applications are due.
And Cal, if the county was inclined, we could expedite kind of that smart scale schedule if we put money towards the project. So,
If you had it funded and you wanted to put money on it now to start the PE phase or whatever that may be, potentially there's an opportunity for that.
I heard that, the board voted for 1 cent raise, and Charlie, the county administrator suggested 6 cents, and they argued about 1 cent. So I don't know what cow you milk to get the money.
And we've talked about this before, but you're fighting up against counties all throughout the state. Now you have, corridors of statewide significance and corridors that V-Trans needs and all the hot buzzwords, right? David doesn't have any of those down in Northern Neck. Always complains about it.
Well, Route 3's statewide.
No.
Not in another thing.
Not in the Northern Neck.
It stops.
Yeah.
But it should, to your point, it should be.
All right. Let me get him started. Where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this is that you actually have some things going for you in that you've got this study on Route 1, which checks all the boxes. But you are fighting localities that are putting money down on projects. Tell you straight up, your neighbor to the north they've got bonds and they've got local tax areas that they're pulling funds from, and they are putting millions of dollars down on tens of $1 million worth of projects, right? So that's what you're up against at times, but there's a benefit cost that goes into this, and I can't sit here and tell you exactly how it's going to go. So.
On the financing, it could be that you recognize that these are capital improvement projects, and you don't necessarily fund it straight out of the cash flow from the revenue, but rather capitalize it, and now you're into bond financing, right? And figure out that perhaps you might actually accomplish something.
I think that's a strategy, but you also have to remember that debt has to be paid back, so.
Yeah.
Right, it's gonna pinch the cash flow.
No matter what pocket it comes out of.
Right.
But you have to do any of those things, you have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And you have to have studies and plans for the studies, right? To get the study, like, all that has to happen. That's, to me, that's where you all come. That's what.
So, do we have engineering for these projects? Or
Not design,
preliminary?
these are just planning level studies. They're full studies, so they've got numbers behind them. But then, it's traffic data and safety data and, how it's gonna flow and all of that stuff.
None of the
These are-
geophysical, like
they're-
wetlands or.
No, they look at very little of that. They, I like to joke that our planners take some crayons and they write where they want the roads. Sorry, take the crayons and put where they want the roads to go, right? But at the end of the day, that's all they're doing is they're putting a lot of thinking behind it, but they're putting it down on a flat piece of paper. Until you get survey and you start the design, things can come up, things can get more expensive, things can get cheaper.
And you have a lot of fiber going down these major roads.
Yeah, they do provide at least some preliminary cost estimates.
Yes, yeah.
So,
We say planning level, that's.
yeah, thank you for the correct term.
So I mean, it's just the same thing we did on 207 and 301 7 years ago. The R2 preservation study that went through Port Royal.
Mhm.
It was the same, I assume, I haven't
Same-
been all with the
same
same study
process,
much, but it's pretty much the same level of detail. Look at all the intersections, all the crossovers, make a recommendation.
How do they work now? How are they gonna work in 10 years, 15 years, based off of growth rates and all of that stuff?
But we're still using, I mean, if you looked at the comp plan that Leon gave us last month, there's a list of 20 probably plus intersections or crossovers that are in the comp plan based on that arterial preservation study we did 7 years ago. And I would assume we'll be fighting for these improvements for the next decade based on this study. And so it's kind of the first step.
And it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you know, we might have a project that comes along in this area, you know, for rezoning or something, and then as a part of that rezoning, you know, they'll do a TIA and it may show, hey, there was a need for, you know, some improvements, and maybe that developer can participate in helping us accomplish some of these goals. And maybe because of their project, they may do a portion of the improvement, you know, to
Or they proffer some funds,
Yeah.
and then you've got money down on a smart scale project, right? I mean, there's so many different ways you can cut it, but having these studies and these, I mean, it's huge. I can't tell you, if you don't have it, for instance, the last smart scale round, before Leon, Caroline County applied for nothing. You didn't even ask for the money, like, didn't even, hey, let's throw a project and see what happens. 0 applications came from Caroline. So,
A good job, VDOT and Leon. That's great.
mostly.
mostly
I was here then.
I think the other thing that I think, and I'll just, Leon, if you're the one doing the applications, you gotta go back as far as you can go and find as much economic development support you can for these projects, because that's the one way it's gonna get funded. So if you got something that's approved and unbuilt, you have to include it. If it's within that radius, if it's zoned, approved, unbuilt, you know, anything that you have in archives within that radius for these projects, you gotta include it in those apps. Spend some time digging in, because that's the difference. Because
So smart scale's gone to the economic development as the principal driver now.
well, it depends on your land area type, but for Caroline County, the highest is safety. So you get 40% of your score from safety, so crash history, how many crashes. And then the crashes are ranked out based on fatalities, injuries, or property damage only. So if you have a bunch of fatalities, you get a higher safety score. The next highest is economic development. And that, you know, the more approved unbuilt, you know, if you build it, they will come, is kind of the philosophy. So if you have site plans that are sitting out there that are approved and haven't been built, you have to include those with your application, because I think it's 30 or 35%, I can't remember. But it's high. The next is congestion. I think congestion is like 10%. So, and then there's one more. Do they include the land use? I think they took land use out. But those are the 3 big ones. And, you know, I think the intent initially was we'll make economic development a big factor in growing localities to try to help them or whatever. But if you don't have any economic development in that area, then it's punitive, right? Because 0, you know, 35% of 0 is 0. You know, so it doesn't help you. So you have to have those economic development support, and it goes by square footage. So you have to include the square footage of whatever building you're planning to build with that application. That's imperative. We see a lot of applications that rely only on the safety score, and they don't have any economic development support, and they just fall to the bottom.
So hence your comment about Ladysmith Village and potential.
Yeah, but it's only commercial development, residential don't count.
Yeah, I don't think there was any commercial. Was there a commercial component of part of Ladysmith Village?
Yes, there was.
Was there? Yeah.
It's the shopping center, but
Okay.
they took out like the live work units and that kind of thing.
But even like on the Tractor Supply, like if they built an access road in there and there was a conceptual sketch on that plan for something else that was just generic, that they just said, here's a possibility of something that could go here on this pad site, then you get points for conceptual sketch. So anything you have.
Oh,
you know, if a developer came in and met with you and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this, and you never submitted it, but you kept a copy of it, then submit it with the application. It doesn't get as many points as approved unbuilt site plan, but it still gets some points.
okay.
So you gotta grease the gears with those economics.
A brand new one of those. And, if memory serves me, those of you who live in the area, isn't the access road next to Tractor Supply built as a 4-lane with
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
so it's
seems
not a
like
medium.
there'd be a lot of commercial interest in that area that's undeveloped, that would be.
Be on that Star Drive.
Yeah, okay.
That was the intention.
Well, we got a lot of time to get to dig in the archives. And find some.
I'll come in, I'll find it.
All right, there's my intern. So that's all I have for updates.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hughes. Let's move down to the project ranking discussion.
So, update there, David and I, like I said, are gonna get together on Friday and work through the process you guys recommended for accidents and look at it from the lane mile perspective. If you recall, I think I had it in just as accidents and accident severity, and you guys suggested we switch that to a lane mile methodology. So we're gonna get together on Friday and come up with a methodology for working that out. And then, like I said earlier, that will give us an opportunity to go ahead and rank those projects and start looking at the 6-year plan, moving forward and adding projects into the 6-year plan so that we'll have projects, going forward. We won't have funds, like Kyle said, just sitting there. We can program funds so that it can be used. We'll also get the list of unpaved roads, and then we can start to rank those as well. So we'll kind of, have a look at both of those types of projects.
Now, with that lane mile, is that fatalities or just accidents?
I think you got to talk about it being accidents per lane mile. Because,
Is that okay?
yeah, like, take Jericho Road, it's probably 15 miles, and,
Well, we just had 2 more on Jericho
oh,
within the last couple of weeks.
were they fatalities or
No,
just?
I don't think it was fatalities, but they were one was pretty severe.
So,
Ain't just the 2 that I saw. I can't tell you about it. Yeah, and they were right at both of those were right at Mount Carmel. Well, not the old Mount Carmel.
in that curve?
Before they even get to the curve, right as soon as you jump off of 207, right onto Jericho.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right there in that ravine.
Oh, yeah.
One hit a tree and the next one went down in a ravine.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that
Yeah.
little area. So that's a tough spot.
Yeah, because you got such a drop off on that right.
Yeah.
Years ago, VDOT came in and when they straightened the road out on Jericho, they took some of the dirt and filled in over there. So you can imagine what was, what was not there if they had filled that in. Yeah.
Well, I will say in the near future, you'll see a rezoning application, or the plan commission and board will see a rezoning application that is going to talk about some significant changes to Jericho Road in that area. And so
And what area is this place?
this is at 207 and
When you cross over,
when you cross over 207, it becomes Jericho Road. And so, Luck Development is going to submit a rezoning application for a industrial complex there. It's about 1,100 and some odd acres that they are under control, and their plan, their concept right now shows the potential from the intersection of Route 1 and Jericho back for some distance, and I forget how far back it is, being one way.
Oh, no, is that
And
the new town over there?
No. And so what they would do is they put in a loop road, or quadrant road, although it doesn't meet the VDOT definition of quadrant road, but it's essentially what it would be, a road from Jericho down through their property over to Route 1. And so if you're going west or going east on Jericho, you'd make a right, swing down to Route 1. And if you're going north, you'd make a left and go north. And then if you're going south, you just make a right. And so it's a pretty significant, change to the road network. But, it could potentially at least eliminate or help improve one safety factor there, because it would certainly minimize
Minimizes
it.
traffic.
Mhm.
Minimizes traffic.
Yeah, it does. So, and hopefully we get some improvement out of them to make that situation a little bit better.
So if you wanted to get to the interstate and you're west of Route 1, you'd have to take that loop road down further south on Route 1 and come back up to Carmel Church?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or go to Hanover.
Yeah.
And I think it was about, Cal, I remember seeing that was it 1.5 miles, was it?
For what?
The potential loop road at the Love project, do you remember? Yeah. We had some discussions with the traffic engineers, and they're still working on their TIA, trying to figure out some geometrics and stuff to get it figured out. And they have to do some alignments with the approved, there again, Carmel Church Station is the mixed use project, which is approved on the east side of Route 1, and they have entrances that are fairly close there. So one of the things they're trying to figure out is, an alignment so that you have intersections that will align if that project develops. You don't want to have offset intersections.
Right.
So they're doing some work. So I'm expecting to see that there's a comp plan amendment that's moving forward, and if the comp plan amendment is approved, I'm sure they'll come very shortly behind that with the rezoning application. And they are planning a community meeting in the near future, so stay tuned for that.
Where are they gonna get the water?
The water's there. There's public water there.
You might have a pipe, but you need to put water in the pipe to make it work.
There's water in the pipe. There's water there. They've got utilities.
With capacity.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking industrial development, so you're not talking a lot of water usage. So, I mean, if it's distribution or, industrial, they're not heavy
Fire
water users.
flows, well, they can build
They
it.
build a tank and need fire flow. I mean, that's an easy solve. So. And the data center that may get approved there is an air cooling system, so they don't need water. So. No, they've committed to that. So they've profited.
Well, I mean, push air, but you gotta cool the air. To cool the air, they usually have condensers. Condensers use water.
It does, but it doesn't use as much as, as it would.
I've built a couple data centers, so it's not that difficult.
It's not as much as it would normally take if it was purely using the old technology. There's a lot of advancement happening in data center technology for cooling.
Yeah, I know. They use fluids now. Put the whole server, the whole rack in fluid.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll see that.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anything else on your agenda for the?
No, just the calendar. So I think when we convened, we initially said we would meet initially the first Wednesday of the month for every month up to this point. And so now is the decision time to figure out if we want to continue to meet every month or if you.
What about every other month?
Well, how about if we get past the ranking? And then we consider meeting every month? I mean, how long is this gonna take, or that's you and David to get that in place? I mean, you're gonna need input from us from that, correct?
Well, I think we'll probably figure out the ranking and the methodology and make that work.
Okay.
And then drop it into the methodology and then give it to you all to use. Yeah.
Okay.
So DJ, I think we let it go one more month. If we hear the rankings and so forth, so on, we can make a clearer decision as do we need meetings once a month or once every other. That's my opinion.
The only thing I'll say, and, you're not gonna hurt my feelings, every other month. However, I don't wanna regret what I'm gonna say. There's gonna be some key decision points. There's gonna be a lot of them. And I just say this from the experience I have with, Spotsylvania. We have a transportation committee there. We don't have a committee in Stafford. But the goal of this committee is to make recommendations to the board. Am I correct there? Which these are the things you all are talking about, and you're batting around ideas and you're putting together priorities and you're ultimately giving to the board to help make decisions, right? Or recommendations at that. You're going to have some key decision points as you move throughout the year. It could be getting your pre-apps together. It's going to be getting your revenue sharing together. It's your final applications. It's you're applying for a grant and there's a deadline and you got to do. So
Is it possible for you to map those out for us?
I can do my best.
Month of June, you have to meet in June, you have to meet in
Yes,
August.
yes, I think that's doable because a lot of it is the stuff that we know about is out there, right? The smart scale revenue sharing TAP, like a lot of that stuff is very cyclical. Every 2 years, it basically starts over again, right? But there are going to be some things that are not just state funded, right? Like there's federal grants, there's other things that are going to fly at you that they may, oh, I've got to get this done by next month. And I say this because I think they have to deal with that in Spotsylvania. They're constantly like, well, we have to have this because we've got to get to the committee in order to get it to the board, in order to get it. So there's a almost like a month lead you need on all of those things to be able to get to the board so that they can open the public hearing so that they can, right? There's just a process to it all. So I'm not trying to say every month forever, but maybe if there's a mechanism for you all to get some decisions still, however that may be, just something to think about, Leon. You don't have to solve it tonight, but there's going to be some times where it's like, oh gosh, I need to get this to the board, and this is something I should get concurrence.
I think the chairman can do a call meeting, correct?
We could do a call meeting, but, how about, similar to what George says, how about if we just looked at it as a month by month basis? We're here this month and we
That's
can
fine. That's fine.
look forward to saying if we're gonna meet next month or depending upon what's on the agenda.
As long as we don't have a meeting, just have a meeting.
Correct.
Alex, I have enough of those.
Huh?
I have enough of those.
Yeah.
I would be happy every other month.
Yeah.
That would my wife would be thrilled. So, but my only caution is there's going to be some decisions that you're going to have to make, and they're going to have to be made time. So,
Sincerely agree.
and I have a little chart of all the different things and the years and the months at which those are due, and I can get that to y'all.
Yeah, like every March or April, we're gonna talk about secondary 6-year plan,
Yeah.
because he's gonna be doing an update in May.
And it's like you all have to give the recommendation, then we have to give it to the board to open the public hearing, and then the next is the approval and the resolution to adopt it. So it's like a 2-month process,
Yeah.
basically.
Mr. Weaver, would you like to modify your motion?
I'm not even sure I want to make it anymore. It's been 9 different
Well,
things
let's
that
go
have
back to meeting next month and then take it from there.
Motion on the floor?
The first Wednesday of next month?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. So it's been, moved, by, Mr. Long that we meet next month. Second by Mr. Weaver.
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor, please vote say
Aye.
Any opposed? Next month, we'll see you.
So, well, hang on.
No, we're not, I didn't adjourn.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I do have one other item of new business, and so by way of introduction, Becky Golden is agreed to be a citizen member of our committee, and Becky also wears another hat. She is with the George Washington Regional Planning Commission, and so want to give Becky an opportunity to talk about the Safer Streets project and grant, and so kind of like Kyle's point about decisions need to be made, and us wanting to have the committee's recommendation for the board. We've got a project that Becky approached me about last month, I think, or a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was a good opportunity for us to maybe accomplish something, and so it's going to require buy-in from the board to put up a match if we get awarded. So something that certainly would want to have the committee's endorsement on to take to the board and have them make the ultimate decision. But with that, I'll turn it over to Becky and with her.
I'm very excited to be a member of this committee. I've lived in Lake Landor since 1999. My parents helped me move in there, so the project, we finished a safety action plan that was all 5 of the GWRC jurisdictions chipped in for a comprehensive safety action plan under the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant process. And the outcome of that plan, we had the consultant choose 5 corridors in each locality that had high crash history, and they prepared order of magnitude costs and countermeasures for those roads. And the 5 roads in Caroline, Sparta Road, Fredericksburg Turnpike, Primary Road 1, Jericho Road, Ladysmith Road, and 606 Stonewall Jackson from Thornburg all the way to Fredericksburg Turnpike. And upcoming this May 16th is the deadline to apply for supplemental planning grants with the Safe Streets and Roads for All. The idea that we came up with, both with our consultant and local input, actually was from this group too, is the one you saw, that the Smart Scale application at US 1, Marie and Page, that intersection there. It's an extremely high crash intersection of yours. I witnessed a fatality there myself, dealing with a horse trailer and a state trooper in 2017 at that location. And what the study will do is look at options. The Smart Scale project that has been developed by VDOT includes adding a left turn lane for both northbound and southbound US 1 and a right turn lane. And the crashes we observed there are side angle collisions from the eastbound motorist on Marie trying to make that left to go northbound on 1, and the westbound traffic on Page trying to go left on US 1. And there's no safe gap for that left turn. They've got to wait for 2 southbound lanes and 2 northbound lanes to be cleared. So it's really tough. And when we add the left turn lane in the middle, although it'll be safer, as Kyle pointed out, for folks to not be rear-ended as folks come up the hill, it will make it that much more difficult for that left turn traffic to find a gap. So what the consultant will do with this, and what we're going to do is provide Leon Friday. We have a proposal from our consultant to do the following. They would observe closely that intersection, both in the field themselves, and set up cameras to observe traffic and pick up not only the traffic counts and movements, but to observe the near misses. You see what crashes exist by the crash report, but there are a lot of near misses out there. And there's a traffic warrant analysis. Probably it will never meet the traditional warrants for a traffic signal, but there is a warrant that is a lack of gap. So they'll look at least 3 options there with input from the locality and with VDOT. One will be an option of what is the traffic impact analysis for the traffic warrant. Is a traffic signal potentially warranted there, using the different the gap analysis, the safety analysis, and the turning movements that are in the, I think, 12 warrant analysis required by VDOT. The second option that we've come up with to look at would be, what's up, and you may have seen, the, discussions about, a restricted U-turn called an R-cut, which would be, and I do it myself, when I'm coming out Ladysmith Road onto 207 to come here, a lot of times, or at 208 in Spotsylvania County, as a motorist, sometimes I'll make a right, go to the next median crossover, and make a U-turn, just so that I don't have to make that left and look at everybody coming in. So it's a way to make that a safe movement where you go right, go across, make a U-turn, and that U-turn, just like they did on Ladysmith Road, the recent widening, where they have the nice bulb, bulb out for the tractor trailer to make that U-turn. They have those all down US 1 through Southern Pines, North Carolina. That's the first time I noticed a restricted left U-turn. The other option that in my mind is a blank here on the third option. With this grant opportunity, Spotsylvania County is also going to study the Marie Arcadia intersection and Arcadia US 1 right now, where you've got that skew, and it's really dicey to make that left out of Arcadia to go northbound. So what this will do, because Spotsylvania County is going to fund the Arcadia US 1 and the Marie Arcadia, and probably look at a roundabout for Arcadia Marie. And then they have options for Arcadia that we could, one of the ideas will be to have Arcadia be a southbound right only and close off the northbound left, which will put more traffic to help meet the warrant analysis at the Caroline County intersection of Marie and Page. So the idea, if Caroline is able to fund the Marie Page US 1 supplemental study, and Spotsylvania has these other two, that they would be modeled all together. All the options in both counties would be modeled. We could come and show it to you, and I call it how the little ants, move, and take a look at those options with the two counties and the input you have as far as options for a future project. So what we'll do is provide the cost for the grant application that will be just Caroline counties, and it is a requirement of a 20% match, and the 80% would come from the federal Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. Our FAMPO administrator also met with VDOT and found that your telefee funds can be used for the 20% match. And that's pretty cool, because when I looked at the previous funding you have of $15,000 of telefee and your upcoming FY25 of the $17,000, I believe the cost that you'll see when we develop it and send it to Leon, that will cover the match that you'll be expected to have, if the committee agrees, if the board agrees. Our schedule, May 16th is the deadline for the grant applications to be submitted. And what I will do is put together the cell job for the project using crash analysis and so forth. You'll also see on your upcoming George Washington Regional Commission Board of Directors meeting, that's a week from Monday, we will be taking all of the supplemental action plan and implementation grant projects to them, including the description of this one, which we call the triangle. We're really excited that it crosses the county line between the two counties and addresses two really dangerous intersections on US one. One of the options that will be considered at Arcadia US one is also an R cut. And if you can envision the spacing between Arcadia and Mayre Page, this median break between the two could be where we call it a super street, when you have two of them in tandem. So all of it is subject to study and analysis and your input. It may end up at the end of the day, that we just like it the way it is with what's great is the smart scale project's underway to put in that left turn lane. I don't know if our work with SS4A and the analysis might help with the smart scale application, but it will be very fast tracked because we want to, when we apply in May, it's very possible that by July, we might be awarded the grant funds with the idea that in the next round of implementation grant opportunities, perhaps January of next year or February, what this report will end up is planning level costs for the options. And we can get people's input for an implementation grant potentially for the option you support that would then do the full engineering, the right-of-way acquisition and construction in a future year. And for an implementation grant, you have to ask for money to finish the job. It has to go from, they want to see it built. So that's kind of how that works. But the study money will get you those order of magnitude costs, the crash impact of a no-build option or of the left turn lane by itself, and then the crash reduction. Well, those are the two options of a traffic signal and the R cut, or those would be the three options to be studied. The left turn lane that's under smart scale consideration, new traffic signal and turning lanes. And that new traffic signal and turning lanes would include turning lanes on the side streets as well, to really have a full option, along with the warrant analysis, whether or not that meets warrants, and then the idea for a super street. So that's coming. We've thought that Leon will, receive the information, and our meeting next month. I know Carrie Eves from my office is going to come and speak with you about something specific.
GWRC's rural transportation
Plan. I'll be here as a citizen, but hopefully on that, on your May agenda would be consideration of support for the Board of Supervisors to then consider the 20% match and resolution of support for the grant application for their May 14th meeting. If we get that, May 15th, we'll be in a position to submit that to the grant portal. We'll be preparing everything, anticipating approval, so that my analysis of crash history and so forth, with all the localities, I'll be assuming approval. If the board votes no, I just pluck that out of the grant and we don't include that in this round. So
How much?
No pressure.
I'm sorry, how much money for the study?
I'm working now with the GWRC to get that number to Leon by this Monday.
100,000, 10,000?
No.
What?
It'll be in the neighborhood of 65,000 or less.
And what do you think the improvements might cost? Well, I guess it depends on what scenario.
Right. That'll be what the consultant will provide. Planning level costs will come out of the study.
So the first stage of the rocket then obviously is the grant for the study. And I don't think, I can't imagine the board vote to do 20% of something. What's it gonna cost? So,
Well,
is that a fair assessment?
well, no, they don't know what the study costs. They're just be voting the 20% for the study.
Right.
He's just talking about funding the study, so they would have to, 65,000 is the study, they've got 20% of that they would have to
So
put,
you need
and,
13 grand from Carolina.
and you don't even have to necessarily take it from, Caroline, you could use secondary 6-year plan
Telephone
funds,
money. Pay the whole
Okay.
thing.
for it as an option.
And you've got 15,000 of previous funds in your.
What would that money go to also, I think it didn't go to that study?
Yeah, so it just important to say that
Yeah,
you have other priorities that we just voted on tonight, so if that happens,
Yeah.
you'd have to take that money from a project and push it back, so, but you don't have to do it necessarily that year, Becky, so what if you wanna do it like in 2026?
I'm applying for a grant this May.
Yeah,
If you wanna put it off, I don't know why you would,
yeah,
but I saw on your secondary slide, previous funding of Telefee at 15,397. It appeared to me to be available.
That doesn't include what's been spent already.
Okay.
So
So
there was
can you
like
tell us what-
6,900 was spent by the diets.
Anyway, so what I'll do, when I send this letter to Leon, if he could send that to VDOT, and if you all could find the, whatever that 20% is in available Telefee money, I think that makes the Carolina Board of Supervisors decision.
yeah, if we have it, it sounds like that could be a call, but we'll
That'd be
we'll
great.
scrape this SYP and Telefees and see if that's.
That would be just
Yeah,
awesome.
I should be able to make it work. Cause, we got projects out, like the Rattle Trap Road has money in next fiscal year too, so since it's not gonna be done until next fiscal year, we may be able to take some of that previous money and then backfill that
That's
project.
great. That'd be just great. So that's it.
Well, thank you, Ms. Golden. Good to meet you. Welcome
Thank
aboard.
you for having me.
She's just a citizen.
I can write my name down.
Yeah.
So the board is gonna probably throw something at me right now. But I have a question for you. On, new developers that are coming to the county to work, to make suggestions and development,
My cell number?
would this board have an opportunity to, comment or make recommendations on the traffic, impacts that they would have?
Okay. You want my time?
Or is that planning and
I'll take it all.
VDOT?
It's typically planning and VDOT. So the way the process works is when a new project shows up, we get, it's either gonna trip a requirement for the VDOT study,
Thank you.
but I have a requirement for
Okay.
a traffic impact analysis. Pretty much ask all developers to do some type of analysis of their project, so that we can determine what the impact of traffic would be. Their consultants put those together, they get sent over to VDOT for review. VDOT reviews and comments on those and then provides us the comments, back to the developer. I would say if citizens on this committee wanted to be involved in that process, it's probably best served to be on at the technical review stage, where it's at the very beginning. I'm a little hesitant to add another review process into our development review process, because it just creates another layer of government, that ultimately those guys sitting over there are gonna make that decision.
Yeah, they're gonna make the decision.
Anyway, when it comes to what's gonna have to be done, that comes out of that study. So, I'm certainly happy to have you all participate in the TRC and understand what's going on and raise concerns, and if you see something you have a concern about, please do raise it, because, the more eyes and more thoughts on projects, it certainly helps. Doesn't hurt at all. And like I said, we have a process set up so you can participate now. So,
Thank you for the clarification. Right. All minds and hearts clear? Any other suggestions, thoughts?
Hey, can I correct one thing?
Yes, sir.
I talked too much tonight. Smart scale round 1 through 5, the process I told you about economic development, that was current, but they've changed it for round 6. I just looked it up. So I sent you a screenshot out of the technical guide, and I'm gonna beef up on that, and we'll talk about that. So some of the, you don't submit like you used to. There's still economic development measured, and it's still, I think, the second highest part of what we get our score for in Smart Scale, but you don't submit the sites like you used to. So I'll bound up on it and get it.
okay. Well, I know that would make Jacob and Spotsy very happy because I know when I was there, he would be pulling his head out trying to run around and get like 6 years worth of site plans.
I think they've tried to level the playing field by making it things that like Gary Wilson would have in a database, like economic development. But I'm not familiar with that stuff. So
Well, I will tell you all, I mean, from a staff perspective and from leveling the playing field, I mean, that's important because, like Kyle said, our jurisdiction to the north, they've gone out and had these bond referendums and they have this bond money out there. So they have an advantage that they can put money on projects to help leverage those projects and make them that much more attractive. The other thing they have is they have staff that can spend a lot of time put together applications. So I think they're up to 4 in their transportation department now. I think they're about to add 2 more people. I don't know if those jobs are on the street yet, but they're about to add 2 more people. So they're gonna have a transportation staff of 6.
In Spotsylvania?
Yes.
Just for transportation.
So, that just goes to show you. So it's 6 against 1. So it's like going to a gunfight with a knife. They've got money and people. I have person.
Well, you have personality too.
I love it. That was great.
Inside
That's a good
track.
line. I'm gonna keep it
Know how it goes.
Yeah.
with your person.
So, but those personality checks they bounce all the time. So, but anyway, I just said, it's important because right, we're competing for those projects all across the Commonwealth.
So I have questions. So this would be a bad night then with your one person to ask if there's any updates, anything since any news at all on any possibility of the like Fred bus moving back down or increasing service or any type of public transit news in the area.
So what I can tell, what I know about that is, Kyle, if you have any update, please feel
Anything?
free.
I haven't heard anything that's I'm asking.
Yeah, last I heard is that they were updating their program, and that was, we haven't heard anything since then.
Transit strategic plan
Yes.
for Fred?
Yes.
Yeah, they just held their last stakeholder meeting yesterday.
Okay.
I don't think the strategic plan itself includes routes to Caroline. It's improvements of routes already in their current, where they have heavy ridership. But there are examinations at GWRC and FAMPO about systems called microtransit, that instead of a fixed route bus that comes, on a schedule, and there is a current organization that provides microtransit to our east. But the idea with microtransit, and Chip Boyles explained it, it's somewhat like an organized Uber, that trips that you may make a call to a call center and let them know, for example, and this would be for like right now for doctor's appointments and so forth. I believe you can get a trip, but this would be for healthy, just non-Medicaid trips that the microtransit provider can schedule if I call in advance and say, I'd like to go to, Fredericksburg, for shopping, and then other people in the county make a similar call, they can then set up a route to pick people up, take them in, and then a similar dispersal back. I don't quite know how it works, but Fauquier County, for example, and down in the Tappahannock area, rural counties, micro transit is the up and coming way to provide transit as opposed to the traditional
Like a
fixed
fixed
route.
bus stop.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
the,
Bay
the,
Transit.
yeah, Bay Transit. That's
Bay
the
Transit.
that's the and it's very successful. And it basically has to be organized a little bit in advance. But Bay Transit is a highly successful vendor, and may even be one day when there's a regional solicitation, that would be a logical vendor to expand into this area.
Thank you. Thank you.
There you go.
There you go.
Motion to adjourn.
Sounds good.
On the floor. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Thank y'all for the good meeting.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the update.